Welcome to another week of Creators Boardroom. Thank you for joining us. Today we have, I wanted to go over, how to land influencer, contracts, how to work with influencers. I know we've touched up a bit, in the past. We had Mr. Josh Sanchez. He's the one that, works with us in regards to our influencers, or how they like to say in TikTok, the influencers, right? So before we get started, you guys know the routine. You guys can, show your cameras. Don't be shy. Reynold, nice to see you. I know Rudy. He's always in his top secret bunker. Doesn't want to disclose his location. Because when Armageddon hits, I'm gonna go get your refried beans, Rudy. It's nice to see you guys. So anybody wants to share, any wins that they've had since last week? Kenny, thank you for joining us. Any brave volunteers? Victor says he's sick, no camera today. Well, for being sick, Victor, you have a really good Zoom picture. Any brave volunteers? Reynold, my man, what's on your mind?
Oh man, whew, trying to catch my breath here. I was just outside doing something. Only win for me is, man, I'm wrapping up this move. Just found a moving company that's gonna come pack my stuff up and put it in the truck.
Nice. For those of you that aren't, you want to share a little bit about your transition and where you have cooking, Reynold?
Yeah, I'm an older cat. I've been living in California all my life, but I got family in Indiana. So I'm currently finna move to Indiana to spend my last days with my siblings. So help them over this business and teach my nieces and nephews how to run a business and get them transitioned so they could take over where I left off. And I'll be doing that at the first of this month, next month.
Wow, definitely exciting. I know how exciting it is when you're moving. I've definitely moved, when it comes to moving locations, but I've never, moved, multiple states. So, we're here to support you, Reynolds. Super exciting, to do that, especially, always makes it a lot easier when you're closer to family. Um, we're good, Mao? Okay. Mao's just kind of stepping in here, giving me that look like he's gonna tackle me. Rudy, you have a question?
Actually, I think it's a win, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, this Monday, I actually go live on my new website for my
Nice.
business. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I'm really happy. I'm just doing the final preps, right? Like for shipping, little things like that. And then my son, we've been buying this new, the new rolls that you guys have for the DTF, the hot peel roll.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I totally love that thing. It's just amazing. If whoever hasn't tried it, you guys have to try it. Literally, it's like a game changer. But my son was doing some shirts for himself for his little mini brand that he wants to start off, right? And he actually had a shirt that he printed. We were working in our house, and he printed this cool shirt, right? And he took it to school, and his friends loved it. And so, guess what? He sold like five of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
A little
So,
entrepreneur, right?
well, yeah, that's one thing I am teaching my kids. Start now. Get your name going out there. Do this on social media, as you know, it's really big if you're on social. But it's my overall goal for my children to take it to the next level. And I always say, use your resources that you have on hand right now to become successful. And I go use the machines that we have here at our house, and there's always friends that we have that could help us out, like you guys, right? Omni. And but yeah, I'm pretty stoked for him, and I'm pretty happy for myself because I go live on Monday, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good.
Yeah, I know we've definitely been talking about that. Super excited for you, Rudy. And thanks for the plug for the film. We like to say, the peels like butter, right? One
Yeah.
one thing that I would recommend for you is, we've been kind of really upping our game with the R&D, research and development for the graphics, right? Because a lot of the limitations out there with direct to film is you have to have these nice crisp edges, right? But those of you guys that do screen printing or you're familiar with halftones, right? You can actually have a graphic. There's a graphic that we were testing today of a lion. It was really cool because the hair kind of blended into the garment, but it's all achieved through like halftones. Like if you're doing screen printing, those fine little halftones. So I would definitely recommend Rudy. If you have an artist or you know how to do that, test, doing different instead of doing like a fading effect like you would do it with like your direct to garment printer. Do it with like fading with halftones, and you're gonna be amazed, especially with the new film.
One thing I've been doing to promote the my business, right? I'm actually wearing my merch. Oh, like say example, I took some designs, right, and I printed them out, and out of the hot peel, anything that's inks, powders, and the film, it all complemented, right? And I tell people, look, this is what I print, and this is what I sell, right? And people love the feel of this new of my product, better say, right? I wear my product every single day, whether I go to work, whether I go anywhere. I literally I have that's what I do. And people love the colors. They're very vibrant, very, very, very clear colors. And that's how I'm getting my customer base. I kind of throw myself out there. I use myself as the model, right?
Yeah,
I
for
go, oh,
sure.
look, touch my chest. Look, it feels good, right?
You must not have an HR department.
But definitely, I'm very happy for the product. I'm very stoked, and I'm loving it. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Rudy.
I guess you call me the new kid on the block.
Hey, well,
But I'm
tell
working on a project. I don't know if you guys could see that pretty clear.
yeah.
The grade turned out okay, but I went to print on red. It's not. You see what I'm saying?
Are you using your direct to garment printer for that?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, on what you're showing. What's the main issue that you're having with it?
Well, you, that the blue's supposed to be blue like it is in the gray. But you see that?
Yeah.
See the difference?
Yeah, I can kind of see it. One thing that I would recommend you do, you can play around with your settings, right? As far as like adding a little bit more white ink underneath, changing the dot size on the printing.
Well, it's not the white. It's just the when I print on the red shirt, it's showing. It's not showing the blue like it is on the gray.
hmm Is it 100% cotton?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely, there's a setting on there on medium. I would recommend using like the medium dot size, medium to large. There's different settings that you can do for that. If you want to, Mao, can you put my email on there so he can, Kenny can shoot me an email with some better graphics. I can kind of help him out that way.
Yeah. Let me get a pen and write it down.
Yeah, he's putting it in the chat. Make sure to give him the fake one, Mao. Yeah, so shoot me an email, Kenny. Send me some pictures, and then that way I can take a little bit more time helping you out.
Okay.
Cool. Anybody else? Anybody has any wins that they want to share before we dive in? Welcome, Jesse. You said that it's your first time here, so we're gonna get started. Dawn, be careful. I think a lot of times Dawn, she's on the road. Like sometimes like Victor driving, making her. Why do you have a baseball bat behind your seat, Dawn? Making those collection runs. Okay, so we're gonna get started. Nice to see you, Alma, as well. So this week, what I wanted to cover is how to land these influencers, to get their contracts for merch. There's a couple different things that I'm gonna be like zigzagging, jumping in and out because they kind of tie together with how to land big corporate clients as well. From my experience, some of you guys that are not familiar with, I used to deal with like Uber, Facebook, Coca-Cola. We still do a lot of fulfillment right now as well. There's a agency that I'm working with right now. We're working on their merchandise for Red Bull. So I kind of wanted to touch up in regards to that is, how do you go about getting these types of customers? And for the influencers, I'm actually going to share with you guys the actual standard operating procedure, the SOP that we have as far as our steps for doing this. So like the first thing that we do is, I have on here, the influencers comes in to the actual location. Like those of you guys that are not familiar with an SOP, it pretty much is like how do you do every little thing. So you have everything documented, step by step. So in case you need to train someone on how to do it, they're just gonna follow your little guidebook step by step. So the first thing is like, the person comes into the office, something like that. You're having somebody visit your office. You want to make sure you have some water. You give them a tour. As an example, one of the influencers that we're doing fulfillment for, he's in the fitness industry. He's an influencer for fitness. I think he has like 5 million followers, combined followers, something like 10 million over like YouTube, Instagram, different platforms. And he sells a couple $100,000 a month just in merchandise online for his business, for his fitness, like lifting belts and different things like that. And he wanted to expand his print on demand to, because a lot of the stuff they have to buy in bulk. They buy thousands of dollars of inventory, then they have to hold on it and sit on it. So we help them develop their print on demand, and tying it to what I have on here as well, because you're saying, okay, that's all fine and dandy. So it's kind of like, how do you land your first customer, right? How do you even get them in the door? I know some of you guys that, maybe you didn't tune in last time Josh did it. It must have been a couple months ago he was talking about that. One good way that I would recommend, this is actually a conversation that I had with, Victor, our CEO, not too long ago. He personally uses LinkedIn to reach out to other business owners. What do we have on the Alma? I got the Spiritwear account. Next is the football account. Nice. How do I add a picture? Kenny? Email it. Oh, email it. Just attach it. Nice job, Alma. I know we've been talking about this. Congratulations. Definitely making progress there. And like I was saying, LinkedIn, there's a paid version of LinkedIn, because there's a free version where you can just post and follow people and request to follow them, things like that. But there's also a paid version. I'm not sure how much it costs. The last time I checked, maybe 20 on the low side, 50 on the high side, and they actually give you a limit as far as like how many direct messages you can send to someone. Because in order to send somebody a direct message, correct me if I'm wrong, Ma, unless they changed it. In order to send a direct message within LinkedIn, you already be like that person accepted you to follow them. So you need to have that connection. You can't just be going on there blasting people, right? But for you can pay to send direct messages, and $50 a month is a good investment. I believe last time I checked, they might say like, hey, for $50 a month, we'll have you send 20 direct messages out, which means that if the CEO of Coca-Cola is on LinkedIn, you can send them a direct message and be like, hey, how's it going? My name is Edgar. I always like to tell people I'm your neighbor. Hey, my name is Edgar. I'm your neighbor, right? This is what we do. And this LinkedIn is a good way to just put your foot in the door directly with the direct messages. So that way, you see these influencers, and then you can send them a direct message as far as like, hey, I really like your work. Can I send you a sample? What's your address? What's the best way I can send it to you? So just to put your foot in the door, because getting these large accounts is not, it's not like an overnight thing. It's kind of like, people like to say it's like we're an overnight success that took us 20 years, right? So it takes time. You're gonna have to chip away at it. You're gonna have, because one of the things people are not really familiar with, that most sales, they're made after the seventh attempt, right? It might be even longer than that if I'm not slaughtering our training mouth, but at least 7 times, you're gonna be hearing either they're gonna ghost you, you're not gonna hear anything, they're not gonna reply to you. So it takes at least 7 times to consistently be following up with people. Kind of like I'm gonna, kind of like what Alma put on the chat. I'm gonna use her as an example. She's been dealing with the school. I'm not sure, Alma, if you have the capability of talking or if you're gonna be anonymous today.
I'm just driving. I mean, you can see me driving, so but I just
Yeah, do you want to share with us?
Do you want to share with us your strategy?
was actually volunteering for my son's school to work. They have this little trailer that they put up for the varsity game,
Uh-huh.
and they sent out asking for volunteers, but since nobody ever wants to volunteer, the girls that are in charge of the spirit trailer were the ones that had to run it. But one of them, son was getting married, so she couldn't go. So I volunteered during a varsity game because my son wasn't playing. And everybody thought I was crazy for volunteering because I'm a freshman mom and all this other stuff. Well, working at the trailer, I was able to talk to the girls that is in charge of ordering the spirit wear for the school. And that's how I got in. So I mean, it was a 2-hour volunteer for a big order like that. But, even going back and forth, they would schedule meetings with me, and they would, last minute they would cancel or they wouldn't show up. And it was very frustrating, going back and forth, but I was continue to be persistent. And then after, I think one of the creators live, he told me to make sure that I confirm the meeting before the meeting takes place, like the day before and then the day of. And so I did this last time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll see you in a little bit." I do remember I actually had to have the meeting at the girl that's in charge, like her home, where she didn't have any other excuse besides saying that she wasn't home. So I showed up and I brought my pen and paper and my list of different times for the cities for the spirit wear and my ideas, and kind of asked them in the past what had they done, what were they looking for, and we went from there. And then that weekend, I sent the for the stuff that they're asking for, and they were like, yeah, no, they're still very sketchy about whether they were going to approve it or not. And then they said, yeah, we'll go through you. We're going to order these 3 different designs. And then I'm like, okay, well, payment. And then I was there were going to be that net 30 or net 60 account. I'm like, no, I need to get paid first. I can't do it backwards anymore. Not big accounts like that. And so I was just like, okay, yeah, I got it. They approved it. They got it. But for me, when they pay you is like when it's like official,
Yep.
So on Saturday, I was supposed to get payment on Friday. I didn't hear from them, and I got busy, so with them on Friday. So then on Saturday, I sent out the message. I'm like, hey, if you guys want these garments to be ready by the 20th, I need to get payment so I can get started. And they're like, oh, she didn't pay you? And so we figured out, and I went all the way to the house of the person that was supposed to pay me to pick up a check. And so now, yay, now it's official. It's in the process.
You drove to pick up the check?
Yeah.
Yeah, do whatever it takes. You're driving like who's like everybody seems to be driving sometimes, right? Everybody has their baseball bats in there. You just rolled up with and you ask for the check, and that's really good. The money's in the follow up.
Well, she said that she would drop it off because of the history of being so sketchy, or not, or saying she's gonna drop it off and I'll be sitting there waiting for it. I just told her whatever's more convenient for you. If you need me to get it, I'll go get it. And she's like, oh yeah, that works because I'm working on some other stuff right now. And so then that's when I went to go get it. But because I was able to have my screen printers in line, I'm actually outsourcing and keeping one to myself. And that's only because one of them is glitter, which that specific screen printer is not do glitter.
Okay. Wow.
And that's my story.
That's really good. It seems like you really had everything lined up, organized. I see your Is that your son? You're the future CEO of your enterprise?
Yeah. And then the same person is in charge of the football account. The football account will be 460 sets of 4 garment pieces each. So it'll be sweaters, t-shirts, the tank top, the polyester tank top, and pair of shorts. So it's 160 players or more, and that'll be 160 sets of each one with the same design, except for the shorts.
Wow, that's really good to hear, Alma.
So that was my story. I'm sorry, I'm just taking kids to appointments, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm camera. But that's my son. And there's my little there.
We're gonna have to have him sign a disclosure, right, Mauricio, to show him live. They're gonna have to sign
A waiver.
He's been working with me since I got my printer. He used to be the one that was pressing my shirts, but then he got too expensive for me.
He wanted a lot of those. He wanted a lot of those esquites, right? All these trips to La Michoacana.
He wanted his cut. He's like, I need 10%. I need 20%. I'm like, wait, what?
No, I definitely like your story, Alma. It's definitely a big win. From the conversations that we've been having. Just being firm with what you're doing, being firm with collecting up front. Driving to get that payment. It's super super important, to show your value, and then for them to understand, like, hey, unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to do anything. And it's in the last meeting that we were having, as the group meeting we had, where it's like, just following up with people, letting them know, like, hey, it doesn't matter who you are, right? And how big your organization is. Like I like to say, you need a pay to play. And I'm glad that you're making progress. That's a big account. Getting your foot in the door with the school, because not only that, that's where you build on those relationships. I'm not sure, Alma, how long you've been working with that organization, or just nurturing that relationship. But that's how it starts.
A year and a half. A year
A
and a
ye-
half now.
A year and a half, and now it's paying out, right?
Yeah. And then during the time I got, just go check in, okay? A year and a half, and then this past week on Sunday I was getting a coach for one of the little league teams that was like pushing and adamant, you order the hoodies before I pay. I don't come back until Tuesday, and I'm like, nope. I'll start the order when you pay me. And then he zelled me, and so I was able to get the order started. But I was like, I'm not doing this whole not getting paid before you put in the order, because last year I got badly burned with a lot of accounts that people would either pay me really late, like not just a week or two late. I mean, they were going on like a month late or a month and a half, and it's like, really, like, I made that for you like 2 months ago. And some people wouldn't pay, and then that's how I was getting behind on everything. But I got that account too, and then I went to go meet with another screen printer that's local, that he loves working with a contracted work, like for me to be like the broker to the customer. So he would be more than happy to work with me on orders, but his minimum is like 75 pieces when he's in the busy season, and like during slow season he said he'll take orders like 40 or 50, but for the most part his minimum is like 75, because he has 2 of those large automatic screen presses. So I don't know if that's standard or not, but there is somebody here local that I found that has the automatic presses, and he likes to work with brokers.
Yeah, that's really good, because there's companies that all they do is literally just do wholesale printing with brokers. Like when I was doing the printing, when we had our in-house automatic, like it was rare for me to work with the end customer. For the most part, it was like dealing with the brokers. So it's really good that you establish those relationships. And 72 or 75 pieces that you said is not that bad. Before, the minimum used to be like 24 to 36, right? But now with direct to film, you can literally, outsource, do everything that you normally would do screen printing for, like 24, 36, 48. You can easily do direct to film with that. Especially now that the film is a lot more advanced, it doesn't, it feels softer, it feels better, versus then jumping into screen printing. But yeah, that's pretty standard, Alma.
Okay, fine. And he's like, how many orders of 75 or more get? I was like, oh, just a few. And I told him I do smaller orders. I said, so if you have anybody that needs a smaller order, you can always send them my way. And he's like, okay, cool. He took my card and he's like, that sounds like if you send me your bigger ones, then I'll send you my little ones. And I hate dealing with the team. Like he doesn't do any sport teams here in this area. He refuses to deal with the team moms and the coaches and all that, and it's just too much drama for him. And then I told him, oh well, that's usually like the people that contact me. He's like, well, if you love doing it, then I'll send them your way.
Yeah, like I always like to say, part of the training is you're almost like a strategic therapist, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to keep everybody in line and all borderline almost like keep them within your box is what I like to say. And I know Benny, you've been patiently. I see you. We're making eye contact, you and I. Like, did he not see my hand?
No, no, no. This is really directed to Alma. I just want to congratulate her on landing that job. But I was also going to say, make sure you have that driving fee, for the pickup. I'm just saying, driving is not free.
I believe that now they'll take me more serious. I believe that in the beginning it was more like, let's just try her out. I mean, they even ordered T-shirts and long sleeves before they did the order with me. And the other girls like, I told you we were going to use Alma. Like, why would you even order all this other stuff? And then so I know that that account's mine now. Like it'll come to me, and it
Definitely.
was simply because of the customer service that I gave her compared to these big box places that she used to send out her orders to.
Yeah, definitely customer service, especially that's going to be a huge thing, right? Because people are willing to spend more money if they're getting better service. So that's definitely, super important. So that's definitely, big progress, super, super excited for you, Alma. I know that's just the beginning. You get one, then, before you know it, you're like taking over the area, with all the schools. Like I said, I used to do a lot of printing for brokers where all they would do is print for schools, right? So it's kind of like you get familiar with, okay, I'm gonna be dealing with these, PTA moms. I'm gonna be dealing with these soccer, dads, and different, attitudes. Different. But the thing is, like, you have to have your good customer service, right? But you have to have structure, right? Because
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, Edgar, and I don't know if this is the place to ask you or if we'll wait till the mastermind meeting, but one of the things that kind of threw me off a little bit was the comments that this other screen printer made. I mean, he's been in the area for 20 years. And I recently had the city of Santa Maria come up to me and ask me if I would be willing to do their T-shirts for their Parks and Rec,
Uh-huh.
and for the league, because of the screen printer that they were using kept messing up and wasn't up to the mistakes that she was making. And so I asked him, like, he was talking about accounts and like how this other screen printer was stealing accounts from people. But I don't believe that if one of the persons that is in charge of the account for ordering, like, say for example for the Parks and Rec account, if she's the one that's in charge of ordering and she comes up to me and asks me what my pricing is because they're thinking of switching vendors, that's not considered stealing accounts, I don't believe. And then I was like, well, they came up to me. I didn't, because he's like, oh, you're going to steal that account from so and so. And I'm like, well, I didn't go to that place and physically try to steal the account. They came to me because the quality and the customer service wasn't there. So I just wanted to know what your opinion is on that. Because I also asked him, I'm like, well, do you do a lot of the fareware, or do you do any printing for the school? And he said, we haven't done printing for either one of the schools, or all three of the schools here, the high schools, for over like, he's like, I can't even remember the last time we printed for them. But what my goal was to get the accounts for the high schools and then go through either him or the other printer. So what are your thoughts on that?
so just to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, you're working with a screen printer and then you're trying to get business. Is it business that he knows the other screen printer? Is that what's going on? One screen printer knows the other one?
Well, he knows all of them, but this specific, he like knows all the screen printers in the area. He says that he does that. Sometimes other screen printers send him jobs for embroidery or for screen printing when they can't handle it, like the smaller screen printers, which would include like me. And but then he was like, "Oh, well, that account belongs to so and so, and that account belongs to so and so." And I was just like, but I told him, and then I told him, well, that was my first thing was to go to a different city, which is like 15 minutes away from here. And that's where I started, like looking for screen printers because of the way that this city is, where everybody knows each other. That was one of the things that he was like, "Oh, well, that account belongs to this person," and I'm like, "Well, what about this one?" Like, "Oh, I don't know who has that account. I don't think anybody does. I think they order like from
I,
online,
I think,
you know." And
yeah,
so that I was just thinking, like, what is your opinion on when somebody says stuff like that?
Seems like a little cartel is going on.
Oh, it is here in Santa Maria. It's bad, and that's
that's
why
so bad.
That's why originally I went to Grover Beach or Pismo Beach and San Luis Obispo, Alamos, which is like 15, 20, 30 minutes away from here.
And it's
Because I
kind of
know
like,
that here in this area, everybody knows each other.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, when, as an example, I think I've shared it, like, being in California, right? I always considered ourselves as I always did nationwide, but more than anything, be like, hey, this is our West Coast fulfillment, right? Because I never considered myself tied to my local city because, it's kind of like just expanding I guess the simplest way to say it is just expanding your thought process, right? Because I transitioned from an industry before printing where we used to do nationwide business, right? So when I started printing, that was my default setting was like, okay, we're doing nationwide. I didn't even think of like, we're just focusing on our community, right? So wherever you're located, even if it takes you one, I'm gonna answer it two parts. One is like, how do you handle that situation, right? Well, that's kind of where you have to be, firm but fair, right? With this specific, like let's say with this screen printer, I'd personally be like, hey, you know what? I'm not personally going out of my way to poach business, right? This customer, they specifically reached out to me. They need better customer service, better quality. I'm gonna deal with these types of different customers. Is this gonna be a problem with you? It seems to be like because when you're dealing with a contract printer, right? You're not they're just supposed to print. They're not supposed to get overly involved in your business, right? The industry unknown rule is you don't take it like as an example, if I send my business to you, Alma, to print, right? You're not then gonna reach out to my customer and be like, hey, by the way, I'm the one that printed your order. Why don't you deal directly with me next time, right? That's a big no-no. When you're the printing company and then you take away your customer's customer, that's a big no-no. But when it comes to like if I'm doing printing and you bring a customer, I'm like, okay, that used to be so and like, okay, yeah, that used to be so and so's. What happened? Oh yeah, they X, Y, and Z. I'm like, all right, perfect. That's not my business, right? But if you're dealing in the smaller, I'm just kind of envisioning myself, being I grew up, I was born in a small town, right? I came, I visited that small town and I kind of get an idea what you're talking about, Alma, right? So it's kind of like even if you have to drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes to find a different, more industrial print shop that's not too emotionally attached, right? Because when I was doing printing for companies, there was companies that they were in Las Vegas sending me orders, across state sending me orders, and they personally never came to my location, right? It's more like they found me online, we had a couple conversations, they tried me with small orders. So with your situation, I would be like, I would kind of go a little bit further out. Like you're saying, you can go 20, 30 minutes outward and find other printing companies, right?
because you don't want to be
Oh,
dealing.
there's a few other ones in other cities that are close by. I
Yeah,
mean,
because you don't.
the original one that I played, I really liked him. He has a manual press. He doesn't have the automatic presses. Like we had been working on looking for people with automatic presses, which I was really impressed with this guy's shop. But I was not, however, impressed of the stuff that I avoid in this city. I don't know, just even with sports, I've always avoided that.
Uh-huh.
And so when that was just, it looks really good. Like, oh, I should just send him stuff. He has 3 automatic presses, 20 something embroidery heads. And so I was like, okay, well, this would be nice. I didn't even know he was there. But then when I started talking to him and that stuff started coming up, I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a red flag. But I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, definitely. That is a red flag, right? The good thing is that you're making a lot of progress. You're reaching out to, different companies in your community.
Definitely expand outward from that, right? Because you were able to find one, right? So I always tell, when I was outsourcing, I always have 3 to 5 different vendors that I would use for the same thing, right? Because I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. As an example, I would get these before we did the screen printing, I would get these big orders. So I would literally split them up into 3 or 4 different vendors and have them, maybe different print locations, different customers, because you want to have at least 3, ideally 5, right? That you can outsource to, and you have no red flags, because that right off the bat would be a red flag to me, right? So I would definitely,
It was, I mean, he'd ask me, oh, which screen printers have you reached out to besides me? Oh, what, like, I was all, why are you asking? I just need to know your prices. Like, I don't need to know, like, your deal.
Yeah.
And so just kind of, was a little, it was okay for a while. And then when he started asking really personal questions like that, that was making me uncomfortable. So,
Oh, he was asking you personal questions.
well, like those kind of questions, like, oh, so who do you print for? Oh, which accounts did you buy and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh, well, I just came to see like if you do that, what kind of automatic. I kept bringing it back to like what kind of press do you have, and then I know that we have a screen printer here that originally I didn't want to go reach out to her, but she sold her shop, and he has like a lot of animosity towards that one screen printer. So it was just really weird. It kind of just threw me off because I've never encountered someone like that. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't want to reach out to anybody here in my city. But I took a chance and it was pretty much like everything that I thought it was gonna be.
although you gotta look at it from the positive side. You're learning, you're reaching out to companies. You went as far as visiting them. You're having these conversations, right? So you're making upward progress, which is great. But definitely reach out to other, like, further away, and you can even make it like little road trips, making a little adventure. Especially you're driving around with your son. Be like, hey, we're gonna go 30 minutes here, and we're gonna get some lunch, and we're gonna do this, that, and we're gonna swing by this place and scope them out. Um,
Then
That's how I did the first one. Anyway, it was really nice for him to join me.
see, there you go. So you just got to duplicate that.
because as an example, I always like to say the times 10, right? I'm not gonna take the 10x slogan and possibly get sued. But before that, I would always think, like, when I got a big account, I'm like, man, if I had 10 of these, right, that would be a lot better. So, you've talked to one. Let's talk to 9 more, right? It might take you talking to 10, visiting 10, to maybe find 1 or 2 solid companies that you feel okay with, because nobody should be asking you who you work with, what customer. That's none of their business, right? And if they're asking you that, then that's a big red flag.
Okay, so that's where I was kind of like thrown off. I'm like, wait, why do you want to know? Like, who cares?
No, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's like that's none of your business. All I'm gonna do is send you a order, and you're gonna fulfill it. I'm not gonna be your best friend and tell you like who I'm talking to and all this other
Exactly.
stuff. It's just really weird. But
Because
Yeah, and it kind of ties in. It kind of ties into what we were talking about. Getting these, big accounts, these influencer accounts, right? Because you don't wanna be in a situation. It's like, I think I shared it with you guys last week or the week before. A really good quote that I like is, I'd rather be prepared for an opportunity I don't have than to have an opportunity I'm not prepared for, right? So it's always good to have your ducks lined up, having all these options, because when as soon as something comes in, you can quickly outsource. You already have a good relationship. You know, the first few orders, maybe you drop them off and you pick them up and you check them out. Then you get really comfortable with that company. Then you're just drop shipping. They print, you ship direct. They ship directly to your customer. That's the kind of relationship that I had with my customers, right? Because one of the things I was going to share, when you're dealing with these big corporations, for the most part, you're dealing with a marketing agency. Like, as an example, when I was doing printing for Uber, I was dealing with the marketing agency that they're the ones that did all their commercials. Or when I was doing printing, if you're in the area, I'm not sure how big, Pizza Hut is, but I was working with the agency for Pizza Hut and, Coca-Cola. So when you're dealing with these big companies, even right now, we're doing stuff for Red Bull, right? And we're dealing with agencies. So you have to have, one, you need to know how to communicate with these agencies, right? And then two, you need to have your partners set up, because there were situations where, like, these big companies, they wanted to make sure that I had the capacity to be able to handle their orders. And they went as far as just asking me, like, oh, what's your capacity, what can you do, what are your limitations, what's your maximum output, right? And some of them might be like, wow, man, if, because I was going based off the outsourced partners that I had. I'm like, okay, if, as an example, one order that I was quoting out, it was for Uber. They needed like it was like around 100,000 shirts, crazy print on the front. It was like a specialty print that not too many companies did, and needed to go like it was gonna be printed and then distributed to like cities around the U.S. So it's like a big project, and I was able to comfortably bid on it because I knew, like, okay, like, let's say one location was like, some of you guys that are maybe a little bit more familiar with screen printing, it's called belt printing. It's like, just imagine this huge belt where you just put the shirt, a belt takes it, and it's a huge screen that plops on it and just prints on the whole thing. And for the most part, you primarily do one color for that, because as soon as the screen prints on it and lifts up, it kind of shifts the shirt away. So it's like, okay, we're gonna do huge half of the shirt belt print. Then they want the Uber hit. Then they want, this hit, that hit. So I'm like, okay, I already have like 5 different, and then before I was quoting it, I'd hit up, my screen print guy in the area. I was like, hey, can you do 10,000 shirts? Hey, and then I hit up the next guy. Hey, can you do 10,000 shirts? So it's like I already had it all lined up, because I knew if I was to get this account, one, I would screw it up. Two, it's a big account, and I always tell the people that I work with, don't take an account that you can't afford to refund, right? So I'm all like, okay, I already have my ducks lined up in case I get this order. I bid on it. I already know how I'm gonna move it around. And then not only that, I'm competing with other people that have the same stuff set up. So definitely, you want to position yourself. Alma, everybody else. You want to have at least 3, ideally 5, right? That you can outsource to, because maybe there's been situations where one day, my go-to person is like, hey, you know what, Edgar, I'm a little bit backed up. It's gonna take me a little bit longer. Yeah, no worries. Then I would go to my other person, right? Because you keep it super simple. It's like, hey, let's say you're my printing company, Alma. It's like, hey, Alma, how's it going? Just checking in. Like, what's your turnaround time right now for like 100, 200 shirts? I'm kind of quoting out a project, so I just wanted to get an idea of where you're at right now. It's gonna take me, 2 weeks. All right, cool. I'll keep you posted. Then I hit up my other guy. Hey, you think you can? If you have a good relationship and you're doing business for a long time, you get to the point where you don't ask them how long it's gonna take. You ask them, as like, hey, Alma, do you think you can get this done in like 5 days? You think you can get it done in 7 days? But like, yeah, no worries, I can handle it. Or like, you know what, I can, I'm swamped. But like, no worries. But you already have. That's how simple and that relationship has to be. Because if they ask you like 2 weeks, well, what's your customer? What are you charging them? Who is it? Where are they from? It's like,
Like, those are
That's how I feel like that screen printer of
that's stuff that I
or
never dealt with. Yeah, you don't want to be dealing with that stuff.
One of them knows somebody that runs the spiritware at Rigetti or at Santa Maria High, and then they tell him, "Oh, well, she's not even doing it herself; she's going through us." And that's where I'm like, you know,
Yeah,
I don't know, it just was weird.
No, you just bypass that and go expand outward and find, because you want to find because they might be local printers, right? You want to find these companies that they do statewide printing. A lot of them they do nationwide printing, but if you want to deal with these companies where their mentality is nationwide. As an example, when I was outsourcing my printing for like Coca-Cola, not Coca-Cola, I mean for Google. I had my embroidery company, right, that I would outsource to, and then it's like Google was super. I think for this one it was for the private jets that they had. It was like a jet with like the Google colors, but my embroidery guy wasn't like Google. Wow, that's a big company. Who are you dealing with? Do you mind if I get their info? Do you think they need some other stuff? So like never did I ever, because I was dealing with like when I was reaching out to company. That's kind of where I get at, where it's like having this nationwide or you're a West Coast fulfillment center mentality, right? Because when you're dealing with these other companies, you're thinking they're in the same boat as you. Are like, hey, I'm reaching out to another, hey, fellow West Coast fulfillment center, this is what I need, versus like, hey, a local printer, what gossip do you have for me? Who lost the contract this week? It's like you don't want to be dealing with the reality housewives of printing, right? So you want to have everybody.
I like that, Edgar. The reality housewives of everything.
because
I've never
especially
been asked questions. Nobody's ever asked me that. I was just thrown off. I was like, what? And that's when I kind of just said, okay, well, thank you for being with me, and keep you posted if I get any orders that are that large. I was like, I'm out of here.
No, for sure, for sure. That's how you want to. Because when I was doing printing and I was using all my local printers, right? You quickly find out that it's a small world. You'll hear like me personally was like, hey, you want to stay away from that print company because they did me dirty like this. They take forever. They change the pricing. So they'll kind of give you the heads up maybe of other companies, but the professional rule of thumb is nobody's gonna be digging into where you're getting your orders from. That's like I personally I don't think I've ever dealt with that. So those are the type of that's a good red flag, Alma. So definitely keep digging for these other vendors. So if you have five, the goal is to have five. So when you do get these accounts, as an example, you know, if you use LinkedIn, like I was getting at, how do you get these big accounts, right? You have LinkedIn, the paid version. You already did printing for these schools. On LinkedIn, you can find, whoever does printing for the high schools, the principals, and then the goal is, because I used to do printing for the accounts that had the colleges, right? So I would do printing for, like, in my area, the USC, right, the Trojans, UCLA. So when I got these orders or received these orders, I was never like, hey, how'd you get the contract with USC? Do you think you could put a good word for me? Do you think I can, or who is it? Who do you talk to? So it's like, nope, that's, you just take your orders, you process them, you print them, you keep it professional. And that's my advice right there. For those of you guys, how do you land these big accounts? So I'm glad we did real world scenario playing with you, Alma, because it kind of ties into what I wanted to talk about. And, with these big accounts, they want to make, like as an example, when the marketing agency that did the printing, that handled the stuff for Facebook, they didn't call me and be like, hey, Edgar, what kind of drama do you have going on over there with your print shops? Is there anything juicy you have for us? They're calling because they want to know that you can handle what they have, right? And if you're dealing with these big companies, just pick, like, I like to think about it as like Bambi, right? It's like the deer is like going to drink water, and it's like, any little noise will spook them, right? That's literally how you have to treat these big companies, because they're professionals. It's like, if for you, Alma, that was a red flag. Like, imagine the marketing agency that's responsible for managing a $10 million budget for apparel, right? And then they reach out to Alma Printing, and then like any little thing is gonna spook them. if you're not properly managing, you don't have your procedures, you're using the wrong terminology. So that's kind of where I wanted to touch, kind of get into is like, how do you land these type of accounts? And we're gonna have to. I just got the warning from Mauricio that like time flies when you're having fun, right? We're already at that time, so definitely Alma, Benny. I think Reynolds tapped out, but we'll definitely pick up on that. I literally had like like I like to be over prepared, right? And then I know like, okay, I'm gonna prepare for the creators boardroom, but I know we're gonna like do like I like to do real world training, what's going on, right? So I'm glad we were able to do that, Alma, and we'll pick it up next week. Just how to deal with getting these big accounts, how to manage them.
I said thank you, Edgar.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so we'll pick it up. Thank you guys for joining us. Any last questions? I know Kenny got your info. We're gonna review that, get back to you. So definitely stay safe. Thank you guys for joining, and you guys have a great rest of your week. And then hopefully next week we're gonna have some great victories and success stories. So like I said, you guys need anything, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm here to help. You guys have a good week.
OmniPrint online.
Yeah, omniprintonline.com.
Okay.
Okay, Kenny, you have a good one.